So today's topic is something that sadly I feel like all women can relate, but this is especially for my black women, my sisters, my my daughters, my nieces, our moms. Like, we have had to endure this for I'm going to say forever. Whenever you are trying to navigate the world in 2023, no matter whether you are there's no, I don't think, prejudices when it comes to imposter syndrome and code switching. Now, what I mean by code switching, and you know me, I'm coming with my definitions. Code switching is, let me give you the definitions first. The practice of alternating between two or more languages or varieties of language in conversation. Code switching is the ways in which a member of an underrepresented group adjust their language, syntax, grammar structure, behavior, and appearance to fit in with the dominant culture. Now, code switching goes hand in hand, I believe, with imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is defined as the condition of feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally despite being high performing in external objective ways. This condition often results in people feeling like a fraud and a phony and doubting our abilities. There are 5 types: the expert, the superwoman, superman, the perfectionist, the soloist, and the natural genius. Now, I'm going to combine these 2 definitions in black girl terms. A lot of times we code switch, meaning and to me, code switching is the wrong definition for it, because I feel that we completely transform into different people. If I go to work in a white dominant male atmosphere, I can't be the homegirl in that particular situation. In that environment, I have to turn on a different persona. I have to look a certain way. I have to fit in, and therefore I have to transform into another person. Now, when I get home, I can take that off and I can be me. That's the code switching. With your homegirls, you get to supposedly, now it's not always true, but when you're with your homegirls or your homeboys, because I hang with both, you get to take all of these off. So in layman's terms, you get to remove the mask. You get to be you. You get to be comfortable. You get to relax. But if in this said setting, you aren't able to actually pull all that off and be you, you are still switching codes. You're turning into somebody else. You're no longer who you are at the office, but you are the 9 to 5 opposite. And then there's a weekend, city girl, turn up. So there is so many different ways that we have to code switch throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. And if you think about having a code switch for 40 years, then damn, you really do turn into this imposter, because you don't know who you really are underneath the code switching. And the reason why I brought this up, because a couple of things. But there was a post that I shared on LinkedIn that says, sis, you better walk into that room like you belong. And I was like, you know what? And I do. I do walk in those rooms like I belong. And then once I get in there, I start looking around and I start feeling imposter syndrome, trying to figure out, well, how did I get in here? Am I supposed to be in here? And then there are external things going on in the room to help further push the imposter syndrome, to make me question my worth and my education and my purpose. It makes me question everything because I got in the room, I belong in the room, but then you start to make me feel like I don't belong in the room. And there have been so many situations, events. There has been so many places that I've gone that, you know, I looked like I didn't belong in the room. And before, I used to go strictly by the books. I dressed the part of what room I needed to enter. And then I started feeling uncomfortable and started feeling the imposter syndrome. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I have to have the colorful hair. I have to have the bright clothes. I have to have the statement pieces. Like, I have to be me. If I'm coming in the room and I was invited in the room, or if I got in the room, I'm in there because you want to see me. But if I am suffering from imposter syndrome and code switching, then I'm not going to give you who I really am and who's needed in that room. A friend of mine posted that she went to an event. She's educated, smart, articulate, like you name it. And she could have the most brilliant conversation with the Michelle Obamas and the Maya Angelou's and the Oprahs. And she can hold her own, no problem. And I have a lot of friends like that. I pride myself on hanging with women that can have these conversations, but we can also get ghetto. We can take it there if you want it. But these are my sisters. And she was at an event that they asked her to be there. And it was a trivia event. And it's crazy. I was supposed to go to the event with the prom. I never made it. But on watching the Upshaws on Netflix with my kids, Regina goes to trivia night, and it's looked at like a nerd night. Like, that's something nerds do. Like, real black girls don't go to trivia night. But there is a group of us that really would dig a trivia night, would get down. Like, it would stimulate some things we didn't even know we even had in our brain. Like, we have a lot of this useless information that comes in handy during trivia night. And she said she was at the table after she was on the panel. They invited her. And she answered questions, and she said that the other people at the table, which did not look like her, were questioning their spouse to see if it was her. Women were asking their husband, is she right? Is that right? Is that right? You have to check with somebody to ask if they're right. She already knew the answer. But yet and still, this imposter syndrome and this code shifting and switching has us questioning, like, okay, I'm at the table. I was invited. I can hold my own. But do I really want to be at this table? Like, it's exhausting to be at the table because you have to defend what you know. You have to defend who you are. But yet you know this shit and you don't really need validation. But because you are a minority, you feel pushed out of the room. And yes, this isn't a table that we want to be invited to. We have to code switch, or we have to have imposter syndrome, because that is really, imposter syndrome is really stressful for so many different reasons. But then it also plays a part in our mental so much, because if you're code switching, you don't even know who you are. When you look in the mirror, you're trying to figure out, who is this that I'm looking at in the mirror, because I have to be like this. And if I'm like this, then I can't be this. And if I'm suppressing who she is, and then I have to fight with them at night. And then what am I showing my daughters? Like, if they, like, my kids told me that my code switching is automatic. And and I'm gonna tell you how they told me it was automatic, that I didn't even realize it. If you have one of those white voices that you pick up the phone and you like, hello, and you talk white, but then the minute you hang up and you're hungry, you be like, what's up? And that's how I answer my phone. You either get one or two ways. You get what's up or hey, depending on what, and then you'll get a hello, because you know it's business and you have to turn it on. So my kids told me that it's one of those things that's automatic. I no longer want to live on automatic pilot anymore. Let me be who the fuck I want to be 24 hours a day without having a code switch. And I think people appreciate that. And one of the examples that I really think of really stands out was I introduced myself to some really prominent people in my hometown, and I developed a relationship with them. And so there would be times where they would invite me to their house when they were having events, like fundraisers for up-and-coming senators or big to-do people around that I knew nothing about, or they weren't from the town, but because of who this family is, it was a good look for this person to be attached. And so I'm there, and I have on this bright colored dress, and it's colorful. If I'm not mistaken, it was like this Jennifer Lopez, had a lot of colors in it. And it was an older white guy, and he hugged me. He was like, "You're so bright." And I was like, is that code word for the N word? Like, what is he trying to say? Like, what does that mean? But I was in my element, so I was feeling myself. I knew I looked good. You know, I walked looking good. And there was a point where he introduced me to a lady, and I had no idea who she was. But she knew who I was. And she said, "You better know who Shasta is." And I was like, oh my God. She speaks so highly of me, and I have no idea who she is. Do I need the code? Like, do I need to pull this back? Like, where did I meet her from? So it was things going on with that. And then I was just like, oh my God, you know, and I played it off and played it well until when she told me who she was, and I remembered that we had met before and I could still be me. I get inside and I'm meeting the guest of honor. And then I look around and there's grays, blues, and blacks. Everybody is in neutral colors. And I'm like, oh, that's what he meant by I'm so bright. The colors were bright. And I'm like, okay, so I'm a stand out. And it's normally a good thing, maybe not, you know, I don't know. I don't really care. But just seeing how people wanted to meet me because I looked like I didn't belong in the room, but I was able to work the room and I owned the room. And I knew I belonged in the room because I got in the fucking room. And it's been so many places. I'll be like, how did I get in there? Why did I get in there? I remember getting an invite to something in my email. And I think it was my work email. And so it was like, come to this. And I was like, what is it? But it seemed like it was good for me. So I go. And I am the only black lady in the room. And probably the youngest in the room. Pump your brakes right there. I already feel like, I'm supposed to be in this room. Who invited me to this room? And then once they do the presentation and people start introducing themselves, come to find out this is a room full of professors and teachers and educators from all over the state. And I'm like, I don't teach. How did I get in the room? But then when they start asking questions and there was things, they wanted to know what I thought. They needed my opinion. They looked to me. And the sad part about it was in the beginning, I think they looked at me. Well, I don't know how they looked at me because I didn't pay attention to any of them. Honestly, I can't remember not one face. But a lot of times before I open my mouth, a lot of people already have this preconceived, I guess, bio about me. They already have their mind made up. They already have their opinions. And you know what they say about opinions. So I come in the room looking like just little old me, but not knowing until I open my mouth how educated I am, how relatable I am, how fascinated, how intelligent, how alluring I am. Once I open my mouth, and I'll let you know that this, what you see ain't really what you get. You might see something ghetto, but behind you got one of those nerdy nerds that want to go to a trivia night. And they wanted to know my opinion, and they wanted to know what I thought. They hung on every word, and I was like, these are educators in there, old enough to, some of them old enough to be my grandparents, and then, you know, I'm the youngest one in the room and the most colorful one in the room, and bright, of course. And I forget sometimes, and that's one of the things that I'm having to go back and say, although they said and he said that you weren't gonna be nothing and you couldn't make it without him and you couldn't be this. You remember he didn't get you in that room. You got you in that room. The rooms that you've been in, he didn't get you in there. She didn't get you in there. They didn't get you in there. They didn't put you in the room. They can't take you out the room. They can't take what you brought to the room at the point that you was in the room. So I say all that to say, if you got in the fucking room, it must be a reason why you in the room, own the room. Yes, they may have made you feel like you didn't belong in the room, and that's why there are so many people building their own tables, because we're like, fucking, I don't want to sit at that table, because if I sit at that table, they're gonna question my every existence. But if I build my own table, then I get to choose who I invite to my table. But yes, in today's world, sometimes we have to go into places that we are the minority, the ones that we don't want to go in, the ones that we may feel like imposters in, and ones that we have to code switch, because that's the nature of the business. A lot of times when we want to go after these big dreams that we have and these big purposes that we have to birth, we have to go in these rooms and we have to knock on these doors and we have to reach these glass ceilings, and sometimes we are expected to play a clown in the circus and kiss a little ass, and we've got to the point where we don't want to do that anymore. So we'd rather just push away from the table or walk out the room, because we're tired of code switching. We're tired of made to feel like we have to be validated, or we need to get you to accept us. I don't need your acceptance, because if I sat down and wrote down all the things that I accomplished, that I wanted to accomplish, like I've always wanted to meet Master P. I have, and I wanted to meet him differently. I wanted to be invited in the room. I snuck in this room, but I met him and I gave him my books and I hollered at him and I told him what it was. I had this. It's a really crazy story the way, but I got in the room, and Pinky Cole came in town. I wanted to meet her. I got in the room. There isn't a goal that I haven't set for myself that I haven't been able to reach. One of my goals is to meet and work Tyler Perry, and I will do it. This is my event that I had where I formed relationships with prominent people in the city. This was meeting Gabrielle Union, getting her book and having her look at my book and tell me that she liked it. So and I need to actually remind my friend of who she is, just in case for a minute she started to doubt herself. But I do know that it did make her feel like I'm tired of having to go through this. I do not like having to feel this way. I don't want to have to keep having to prove myself, and I don't want to keep having to figure out why, when I go in there as my authentic self, and a situation like this happens, why does that tear on me so much? Like, we have to go through so many things just to even be appreciated. And I want to say that I know other women are going through this, and it's not just Black women. The only thing I can say is I can only speak from my experiences and being a Black woman, but I know all women have to go through. One of my other friends, she isn't Black, and she's had to go through it, and she wouldn't have looked at it as code switching, but it's exactly what she had to do, because she worked in an all white male dominant workplace, and so she had to play a part there. But she's dope and smart, and so she gets to be that over here, and then she's a wife and a mother, and then she sits on all these boards, so she has to continue. So it does cross color lines. You have to put a microscope on it to look at it on the smaller scale. But fuck all that. We talking about how it is to be Black. And even when you're trying to build your own things, and you have to go in these buildings and sell yourself, and you have to go in and play the games and do all of the things just so that you can live this life to the fullest. But there has to be hope on the other. And I feel like if we have more of these conversations and start talking about it more, because I want to do the next one about anxiety, and I'm going to try to do part 2 on anxiety and what I've realized about that. But for all of you out there that suffering with code switching, hit me up and let me know what your experience was with it most recently, how it made you feel, and how we can get over this so that we can show up as our authentic selves, and we have the support of a sisterhood that say, you bad, we know it, go in there and show them why you deserve to be in there. But sometimes we need that little pep talk from my sisters, and if you needed it, then here is your pep talk. Go in there and own that room, be the amazing, incredible woman that you know you are, and don't let them put that kind of pressure in you. It's too much pressure. All the pressure. Just be who the fuck you can be and go on about.